Hi, my name is Shannon Hanrahan, and I'm a licensed marriage family therapist and duly licensed psychologist. I'm also a member of the conference planning committee. I am fortunate enough today to have the opportunity to spend some time with Terry Real. He's an internationally recognized marriage and family therapist, speaker, and author. Terry, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So you're going to be our 2019 conference opening keynote speaker.
Yeah.
And you're talking about working with difficult men.
Yes.
Great. So I'd like to invite all of our members to attend the conference. And today we're going to talk a little bit in advance of that about some of your work.
Great.
Okay. So I know things are changing in the world. It's going pretty fast paced. What do you see going on in long-term relationships currently?
Well, let's talk about long-term heterosexual relationships to start off with. Okay. Then we can go to same-sex and others. And the reason why I want to start with heterosexual relationships is because things are really fraught between men and women right now. I don't know if you've noticed that, but yeah, things are a little bit not working out so well. You know, for 50 years, 1 out of 2 marriages pretty much failed. And of the 2 that remain standing, how many are really happy versus there for kids or religion or what? If you do what comes naturally to you, spontaneity, if you do the defaults that you learn in this culture or in your family, which is the transmission of culture, it comes through your family. Culture just doesn't affect you abstractly. Culture is your dad saying to you, stop that, boys don't cry. That's culture. It comes through the mouth of the people you love, the boys on the playground, the teacher at school, your mother and your father. So one of the issues is that we all currently live under the patriarchal system, which is really the values of masculinity writ large. When I say we live under patriarchy, I mean traditional gender roles for men and women. Patriarchy, it means a driven, inwardly shame-based, outwardly often superior, entitled man, coupled with an inwardly resentful, outwardly compliant woman. These are the traditional roles for men and women. This is America's power couple.
Yeah.
You get a driven man coupled with an inwardly resentful but outwardly compliant woman, and you're going to have a successful couple in the world. They're just going to make a hash of their relationship behind closed doors. These are the people I treat. People come in from all over the country, now all over the world, and they spend 2 days with me. These are all couples on the brink of divorce that no one else has been able to help. Mm-hmm. You can see it on my website. I have a few of these.
Right.
They were televised. 2020 and Good Morning America did me. Anyway, what I found in these 2-day make it or break it interventions with last ditch, rot gut, on the brink couples is that I wound up breaking most of the rules that I'd learned in couples therapy school. I take sides. I often agree with the woman. Women are carrying a level of dissatisfaction with their relationships with men. Men are not so unhappy with their women. This is an open secret.
Right.
Men aren't happy that the women are so unhappy with them. If the women would just stop being so critical and love them up and give them more sex, most men would be, fine. What's the problem? Mm-hmm. The problem is this. Across the board, women are really spearheading the movement. It's historically brand new for a truly intimate long-term marriage, for truly intimate long-term relationships. We want to be lifelong lovers. And the problem is that we don't raise boys and men in this culture to be intimate, particularly. That's too vulnerable. We raise them to be, as everybody knows, strong and independent and competent. No doubt when I get to the conference, These days, one of my first things to do is look out over the audience and say, give me some words that you think of when you think of masculinity. And Shannon, let's do it. Give me some words that you think of when you think of masculinity. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, stoic, strong,
Stoic, strong.
determined,
Uh-huh. Any more? Stoic, strong, determined.
aggressive.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I never hear when I ask an audience of several hundred therapists and general audience. Give me some words that come to you when you think of masculinity. Let me tell you what I never hear. Love, caring, comfort, connection, vulnerability. Let me tell you something. These are tough things to live without, aren't they?
Right.
Yet every man does. Most men do. Under the code, these are outlawed. The essence of traditional masculinity, and it is changing, but far from changed. The essence of traditional masculinity is two pillars. One pillar is invulnerability. The more invulnerable you are, the more manly you are. The more vulnerable you are, the more girly you are, the more unmanly you are. And the problem with, there are three problems with invulnerability, actually. The first is that we humans connect through vulnerability. That's what Brene Brown has resurfaced. We've known it for years. You tell me about your lousy kid. I tell you about my hurting knee. You tell me about your back. I tell you about my car troubles, and we're pals.
Yeah.
Instead, men have been sold a bill of goods that says that in order to be worthy of connection, we have to achieve. I call this the Icarus sin. You have to leave home and the family and go fly into the sky and potentially kill yourself in order to be worthy of, guess what? The wife and kids you left who are waiting for you. They've been waiting for you the whole time. But we have to leave home and family and connection in order to prove our mettle to be worthy of the family and connection that we ourselves just left. I can't tell you how many women and children are sitting at home while their obsessed, workaholic, breadwinning husband-father unit is burning up the thinking that he's doing it all for the family, but he's not listening to what the family is asking of him. The second issue with invulnerability is that it's a lie. We're not invulnerable. No human being is invulnerable. It's a total lie. And I like to say to guys, running away from your vulnerability is kind of like trying to run away from your own rectum. It has a way of following you wherever you go. We are vulnerable, but if we deny vulnerability, that means we are constantly living a lie, and that's what we do as men. Which brings me to the third pillar, or the second pillar, which is the delusion of dominance. God created Adam and gave him dominion over all that creepeth on the planet, and that was a really bad idea. The Greeks had it better. The Greeks understood hubris, overweening pride. Putting yourself above nature was the essence of the flaw of all of the Greek tragedies. There's hundreds and hundreds of cautionary tales about men who place themselves above nature and what happens to them. Macbeth is another example. He puts himself above nature by trying to usurp the kingdom, and the whole kingdom turns against him. Trees start moving and it turns dark in the middle of the day. And nature rights itself by killing him off. That's the story. And if we don't, what the new model of masculinity, if I can say this, is not linear and dominant, it's ecological. You're not above nature, you're in it. You have humility, you're a subcomponent part. Look, your long-term relationship is your biosphere. You're in it, you breathe it, you're not above it. So just like an ecological system, you can choose to pollute your marriage over here with your anger and temper, but you'll breathe that pollution over here with your partner's resentment and withdrawal, maybe lack of passion, lack of comfort. Everything has consequences. You're not above it, lording over it. You're in it. Now, look, if we don't come to understand that the delusion of dominance is wrong and dangerous, then we may just render this planet so unlivable that we'll be cursing our grandkids and their kids. Mm. We will learn this humility as a species and undo patriarchal privilege, or we may die. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a matter of potential life and death. Mm-hmm. The dominant model, which is the essence of patriarchy, the invulnerable model, which is the essence of patriarchy, are both dangerous lies. And they make relations with men very, very difficult, needlessly difficult, which is where we come in.
Right.
How's that?
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I like a lot of the distinctions that you made. Now, you mentioned that you were going to bring up a little bit about same-sex couples as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very pleased. I'm the keynote speaker for an LGBT conference, TQ conference in Austin, just in May. I feel very honored. I have a gay son, and I asked him, what should I talk about, you know? And he was very clear and immediate and clever. He said, oh, I know what you should talk about. Me. What it's been like to have a gay son, which I will. Look, the two things to remember about working with same-sex couples, there are a few things. One is monogamy may not necessarily be the norm. Mm-hmm. This is particularly true for gay men before AIDS. It quieted with AIDS, but now that AIDS is quieting down, it's coming back.
Right.
What I call the European model, flings on the side, but don't do anything to disrupt the primacy of the relationship, is very common amongst gays and lesbians both, particularly gay men. And as a straight therapist, if somebody may be coming in to talk about their kids or their parenting, and you decide it's an open marriage and that that's the issue, that's the imposition of your values on this couple. Don't impose. Two, when you're dealing with a same-sex couple, are you ready for this one, Shannon?
Yes.
You are dealing with, drum roll please, 2 men or 2 women. Yes?
Yes.
We can agree to that?
That's a basic premise, yes.
Okay, good. Listen, when you're dealing with a couple of 2 men and 2 women, they look a lot like 2 men or 2 women.
Yeah.
Now, there's a ton of variation, obviously, with us human beings, and I don't mean to be stereotypical. See, straight therapists have this idea that because gays and lesbians and other members of that community have broken out of the heterosexual norm, that they've broken out of patriarchy, that they're kind of post-patriarchal. Well, that's wishful thinking. Good luck. I had a gay couple, and they were very symmetrical, and they would get into a fight, and it would stay silent and cold for a week between them. And when I find out, why doesn't one of you go and make peace, be conciliatory? I'm sorry, let's not fight. No, neither of them wanted to appear weak. Neither of them wanted to be the first one to blink. There's no difference between that and a straight man. This is patriarchy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's not go off on, I could do a whole hour on. Right. The third thing to remember, though, I just want to mention about gays and lesbian clients, is that you want to hear their coming out story.
Yes,
absolutely. You want to hear about their ongoing and moving target relationship to their own gayness.
Yep.
And you want to know how the family is viewing them. Is this, if you're dealing with a same-sex couple, is this relationship blessed or cursed by the people around? It matters. So those are the things I think about. You're dealing with an oppressed minority and you want to hear their coming out story. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with 2 men or 2 women. Don't be fooled. They operate a lot like men and women. Mm-hmm. And don't expect that your code of heteronormative behavior is necessarily going to be the order of the day. And don't pathologize when it isn't. Those are my thoughts about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, can you tell us how relational life therapy is different from other therapies?
Well, I started to say earlier, I agree. Look, it's largely women who are carrying the dissatisfaction with the way things are. The status quo suits men better, and men are not as unhappy with the status quo. The great the great story of the 20th century and 21st century is going to be the changing roles of women, the revolution in women. I think the story for the 21st and 22nd century may be how ordinary guys react to this revolution amongst women. And there are many, many therapists out there and many cultural forces that are responding to women's increased empowerment with basically a backlash. You know, oh, men have their own kind of intimacy, and let's not throw everything masculine into the waste bin, and who knows what these women need to be happy. They're kind of insatiable. All that's crap. I don't want women to stand down from their demands. I want men to stand up and meet them. This intimacy that women are asking for, it's a good thing, Harry. Open your heart, learn about your feelings, learn to express yourself, learn to reach out when you're vulnerable and get some comfort from your partner instead of holding up the world all on your own. Stop self-medicating, because that is the underside of all of that stoicism, is self-medication, because who can stand it?
Right.
What we self-medicate when we self-medicate is the pain of not being connected. Sorry, what we do to boys and men in this culture is disconnect them. The wound to girls and women traditionally is disempowerment. And what feminism has done for 50 years has been re-empower women, help women find their voice. The wound to boys and men is not disempowerment, it's disconnection. The way we, quote unquote, turn boys into men. And let's stop there. Do we turn girls into women? Do we worry about the fraught path to womanhood for a girl? But worrying about whether a man is going to be really a man or not is a major obsession. Why? Because of patriarchy. There's no psychological reason why. It's mythological. Boys need to, quote unquote, separate from their mothers and go off and find the Valhalla of autonomy. Bullshit. One of the things I say across the country is, mothers, don't let go of your boys. Keep the relational bar high. People ask me all the time, how do I raise relational boys? Plug, I do have a 4 CD set you can get on my website. Terry Real. My website's chock full of stuff. Go to terryreal.com and you'll get there. And there's a set, a CD set on raising relational boys and girls. And what I say is, keep the bar high. Insist that your boy, don't settle for monosyllabic answers. Insist that your boys talk.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Anyway, what we do to turn boys into men is we disconnect them from their vulnerabilities, from their emotions, and from others. And do you know when, by the way, this happens?
When?
The wound to girls and women happens at the age of adolescence, 11, 12, 13. That's when they learn what Carol Gilligan called the tyranny of the nice and kind.
Yeah.
It's when they lose their voice and become overly compliant. The wound to boys is 3, 4, 5. It's almost pre-verbal. It's so young. By the time boys have entered kindergarten, there's research that shows they demonstrably express less emotion by the time they're 3, 4, 5. They know better. One of the things I say is that before our boys have learned to read, they have already read the code of masculinity. And don't think it's changing, by the way. There was a recent New York Times report on a massive survey of boys and girls. Girls have changed. Girls are more confident. Girls feel like they can do whatever they set their mind to. 50 years of feminism has helped girls. Boys, no different. What makes a good boy a good man? Strength, independence, invulnerability. It's the same traditional mythology that there was 50 years ago. Hasn't changed an inch.
Yeah.
So, you know, my dear, you may be raising a little sweetheart in your hothouse liberal family, but that kid knows all about playground politics the minute he leaves your door.
Mm.
And he knows how to play the game, and he plays it no matter how sensitive and sweet and liberal you may be at home. He is smack up against the rules of patriarchy once he leaves the family. This is still true for boys. And the punishment that is leveled when a boy goes into girl land is severe. So the way that we enforce the traditional masculine code is through trauma, largely through shame.
Yeah.
And I don't know a single man that I've ever worked with who didn't have a trauma story to tell.
Yeah. And I know you work with trauma in your couples work, and that's a unique approach. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I prefer working with men in the context of their relationships. The key to me to bringing men into wholeness is to return them to a state of relational connection, to undo the disconnection that was done to them as boys.
Yeah.
To learn them to connect to their feelings, to teach them to connect to their vulnerabilities, to teach them to connect to what they want. Most men don't even know what they want emotionally. They want sex, but you know, under patriarchy, men are allowed two feelings. They're allowed anger, and most men will filter all of their emotional needs through those two feelings. Sadness, anxiety, shame, vulnerability, forget all that. That's all verboten. That's all exiled. So you resurface it. You teach men to feel. You teach men to articulate their wants and needs. You teach men to say, you know, I could really use a hug right now. That's a revolution.
Right.
It's a revolution. Teaching men how to live relational lives transforms the character of the man and transforms the nature of the relationships they're in. Leading men beyond patriarchy is synonymous with leading them into increased relationality. Patriarchy isn't built for relationality, it's built for production and consumption. Men can be taught. Men can be taught. Bullies can take a breath and come down. Passive aggressive men can pause a beat and rethink it. Selfish boys can come out of themselves and start thinking about other people. You can teach men empathy. You can teach men accountability. You can teach men vulnerability. But you have to be willing to teach it. Just holding a man's hand and being nurturant, there, I'm sorry, tell me more about it. Traditional holding therapy is not sufficient for a man. It's necessary. You need to have that empathic connection or he won't trust you. But that's not what's going to change him.
Right.
And it drives me crazy. There are so many therapies right now that are all about love and safety and empathy and holding environments and secure attachments. Everybody's forgot about aggression. Listen, men often behave badly. We therapists need to say that to them. It is not a favor to coddle them. Mm-hmm. Most therapists do not take on issues of grandiosity in men. Most therapists don't take on issues of grandiosity with anybody, but particularly with men. You have to, the work I do, there's 3 phases, Shannon.
Okay.
The first phase is loving confrontation. Let me hold the mirror up so you can see very clearly how you're blowing your own foot off.
Right.
I don't do that. And people see it. I call this waking up the man. They see it. I have films I'm going to show of it. I mean, literally, guys just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
Right.
For the last 20 years. And they stop.
Right.
Routinely, people stop behavior they've engaged in their whole lives with relational life therapy. Anyway, so the first is loving confrontation, which I think most therapies don't do. Then, once we get what the person's doing that's dysfunctional, then we go back into family of origin, into childhood. And then we do trauma work while the other partner is sitting there watching.
Mm-hmm.
Big no-no in
I
therapy.
think that's got to be really powerful.
It's incredibly powerful. I'm going to show it at the conference.
Right.
You know, one of the things we say in RLT is you don't ask what the external stressors are. You don't even ask what the choreography is. The first question you ask is, which part of you am I speaking to?
Right.
Am I speaking to the adult prefrontal cortex, deliberate, intentional, can make choices part? Or am I speaking to the wounded child part, very young, overwhelmed? Or am I speaking between these two parts to what we call the adaptive child part of you? What Masterson called your character defenses, what Dick Schwartz calls your managers and protectors. The part of you that adapted to the craziness that was going on. Most men live most of their lives out of their adaptive child, thinking it's a functional adult, and it's not. Right. The adaptive child can do well in the world out there. The patriarchal world likes it, will reward the guy for that, but he will make a hash of his personal relationships. That's where we step in.
Yeah. And I know the concept of grandiosity is really big in your work. Can you talk a bit more about that?
You can't help men without understanding grandiosity and how to help people with it. For 50 years, therapy has done a great job of helping people come up from the one down of shame. But we've been virtually silent about helping people come down from the one up of grandiosity. Right. Okay. There are two self-esteem disorders, not one. There's shame and there's grandiosity. There's inferiority, superiority. There's feeling defective and unlovable. There's feeling entitled and you're a prince. And therapists do not deal with this. They deal with, the idea is that if we deal with the poor man's underlying shame, these insecurities, then these bullying behaviors will just sort of stop. Mm-hmm. To which I say, don't hold your breath.
Right.
It's wishful thinking. Look, you have to deal with grandiosity per se. Just like alcoholism. You know, before AA, alcoholics burn out their families and their livers on the couch. Psychoanalysis was the treatment of choice for alcoholism until AA in the 30s. And men died on the couch sorting out why they were alcoholics. It wasn't until AA came and said, look, this is not a symptom. It's an entity. You're an alcoholic. That's why you drink. Do you want to stop or not? Then people could start to move. There was some traction. And it's the same thing with grandiosity. It's like the idea that if we get to the underlying little boy wound, the grandiosity will just dissipate. That is an idea shared by two cohorts, therapists and codependent women. If we just love the guy up enough, then all will be well. And that's just not true. Right. You have to deal with the entitlement, with the distorted thinking, with the grandiose, abusive or offensive behaviors per se. Now, the way you do that is you reach past that adaptive child as a therapist and you connect with the functional adult part of the man. Look, you are a good person. You don't need to be philandering or lying or thising or thating. It doesn't become you. You're so much better than that. Aren't you? Yeah, I am. Will you let me help you get out of this? Yeah, I will. That's how you do it. You form a relationship with the best part of the man to deal with the less mature parts together. Right. You and me against your grandiosity. And then the third phase, once you do the trauma work, is the education and skills. Mm-hmm. Then you teach people how to speak, how to stand up for themselves with love, how to answer with generosity and not defensiveness, how to lead with vulnerability instead of indignation. You teach people these skills. They need to know. There's a lot in the trauma field right now that is saying, you know, I have a go around with my pal Dick Schwartz, the founder of IFS, about this. We're great pals. And whenever we're on stage together, we always disagree. Dick, like a lot of trauma people, thinks if you just remove the trauma, that we humans will just instinctively know how to be intimate. I believe that we live in a narcissistic, addictive, patriarchal culture
Yeah.
And within this culture, we do not teach our sons and daughters the skills they need to pull off this new ambition of a lifelong lover relationship. We don't teach people how to talk or negotiate or we don't teach people anything. So the third is teaching. And I think it's the combination of all three that transforms the man.
Right.
There are groups like, for example, Gottman, although he's starting to incorporate more trauma, but traditionally the Gottman was all skill-based, and there was no recognition that once there were trauma-triggered, skills go out the window.
Right.
Then there are people like Dick and other trauma people who believe that once you do the trauma, you don't have to teach skills. I think that's also wishful thinking. And nobody does the confrontation anymore. Nobody looks at you and says, Shannon, you know what? The reason why you're on your fourth marriage is because you pick terrible husbands. Right. We need to pay some attention to your picker capacity because it's busted. Nobody does that. And right. I don't know what they talk about, frankly. But what I say to therapists is the thing you say at the cooler or at the coffee machine after the session, I can't believe what a milquetoast this guy is. I can't believe what a witch this is. That should be what you're saying in the therapy.
Right.
Those are the issues. Find a respectful way of saying that. Tell the truth to our clients with love. I have a 2-year training program, and almost the whole focus of that 2 years is how to be precise. Love is precision, a friend of mine says. How to be precise and accurate, and how to do it with love, and how to get in there and tell the truth.
Yeah.
And most therapists just don't get down into the nitty-gritty with somebody.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really important element. And I love some of the distinctions you're making today, too. So I appreciate everything that you've said.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. So we have the conference on April 20th. You'll be there the 25th. So
yes.
You're our opening keynote, and then you're also doing an afternoon section as well.
Yes.
Great.
I'm going to be all over the place, and I'm very thrilled to be the opening keynote. I'll bring a top hat and,
Oh, great. We have to dress up for the event.
Little cane or something.
Well, I know I'm very much looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you. It's going to be a great day. One of the things that I am proud of in my work is that it opens up. It is both as broad as, let me teach you how to do a therapy that undoes patriarchy.
Right.
As broad as that, and it's as specific as, look, when the guy tells you that you're full of it, this is what's going on, and this is what I want you to do in response. It's as nuts and bolts as that, and it's as broad as patriarchy itself. And that's, to me, the most thrilling aspect of it. The personal is political.
Right.
And our work is revolutionary work as we lead men and women into wholeness. We are leading them beyond the legacy that they were handed.
Wow, I love that. That's so important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. And like I said, I look really forward to April 25th and spending some more time with you.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.